Do any of you have a favourite scientist? Raise your hands. Do any of you have a favourite scientist? Who's your favourite scientist?
Rosalind Franklin.
Wrong. Back here. Who's your favourite scientist? Also wrong. Anyone else want to take part in this pointless game? Sir?
Carl Sagan.
Also, that's more wrong than the first two. Carl Sagan, right? Because you only saw his public persona. I had this argument with some people last week. They were like, isn't Carl Sagan lovely? I'm like, on camera, maybe. The minute the camera stops rolling, Carl Sagan is like, fuck the sky. No, you're all wrong. The best scientist ever is a friend of mine, and his name is Duncan. And the reason I say he's the best scientist ever is that he used to sit next to me in every science lesson at school. And let me tell you, the experiments that we did were more important than anything that your Carl Sagans and your Rosalind Franklins and your Too Far Away From Me to Make Outs ever did. And I'll give you some examples of the kinds of experiments we did. When we were 13, we discovered that we were a class of 29 based in a classroom that held 30. And we had those old-fashioned desks that you could store books in and then steal each other's books. So there was a spare desk. So what we decided to do was the following experiment. What I'll do for all of you who've got GCSE science, I will describe this experiment in proper GCSE science style. Apparatus. 1. A desk was taken. 2. A pot of yogurt was taken. Method. Into the desk each day was placed 1 teaspoon of natural yogurt. Observations. Day 1. The desk contains yogurt. Day 7. The desk smells. Day 10. The desk smells really bad. Day 15. The desk has been taken away. Presumed destroyed. That was our first experiment. It was called Deskoid. All of our experiments had brand names. Like, we understood that much. Experimental method, any sort of research ethics, branding, great. So that was our first experiment. Our second experiment, we attempted to build a portable railgun. Now, I don't know if any of you know, a railgun is a special kind of gun that works by magnetism instead of by explosives, and is therefore not quite as illegal to manufacture in your garage. Any of you who know your military history will know that the American Army has been trying to develop a portable railgun for 50 years. We, being 13-year-old boys, thought we could definitely do it. Easy, because it's just a magnet. And also, we decided that the reason that the Americans, even with all their billions of military spending, had never developed one was that they were American. And therefore stupid. And we were like, we brave 13-year-old Brits can make a railgun. So very simplest, if you're trying to make a railgun, you just make a thing that you put a bit of iron at one end, you turn a magnet on to suck the iron towards the middle, and then you turn the magnet off before it gets to the middle. And a piece of iron, not knowing what else to do, just keeps going and becomes a bullet. And so we decided to build one of these. Our experimental apparatus, let me tell you, we used the very, very highest quality ballistic drain pipe. It was 79p, and in those days 79p was 79p. You know what I mean? And I'm surprised that the Americans, probably it would have cost $1 billion to buy that piece of drain pipe. We wrapped wire around it, and we did the first test firing. I'll skip methods and observation, because you can imagine the switch was pressed. Results. The molten lump of plastic catches fire. Duncan is grounded for 2 weeks. Grounded is an ironic word because he blew all the fuses. Don't build railguns. The third experiment we did was the thermite reaction. Have any of you tried the thermite reaction? Yes. Don't. You, of course you have. He's got scarred hands to prove it. Those of you who don't know, the thermite reaction is a reaction so hot it melts steel. It's used to weld railway lines together. And you do it with, you need aluminium powder, you need a special kind of iron oxide. Thankfully, it's the special kind that is rust, which makes life a lot easier. We spent ages deliberating over this really specific iron oxide until a chemistry teacher went, oh, why are you staring at the equation for common rust? I'm like, thank God. Just start scraping things in the back garden. You need a piece of magnesium ribbon. which, as we all know, we all steal as much of as possible from school, because it's the easiest and most exciting thing to nick from chemistry. No one's like, oh, I've got a bottle of copper sulfate. Oh, well done, mate, that'll be entertaining. Grow a really large crystal. As long as we've got something that doesn't like get hit or vibrate for 3 weeks, which of course does not exist in a teenage boy's bedroom. I don't know what joke 10 of you did there, because I improvised that line and there's no punchline, so I want to know where you went with the... I suppose there is quite a lot of vibration in a teenage boy's bedroom. They thought... I think you're overestimating the amount of mass being moved. It's not really going to shake the whole room. Unless it is. I don't know, maybe my amount of mass being moved was lower than everybody else's. It did not shake my room, including the improvised fume cupboard, by which I mean windowsill. Okay, so we stole magnesium ribbon and we set up this pile of the thermite reaction on a single roofing tile, which we surrounded with plastic army soldier figures. Because we were like, I wonder what happens to really cheap plastic under extreme heat conditions. I'm going to tell you what happens in the style of a World War I letter written by one of those soldiers to his family far, far behind the lines. Mother. It is with sad news I tell you that the senseless slaughter continues. Only today, Jenkins, and Jonkins. There weren't a lot of names in the First World War, at least not ones I bothered to learn. Jenkins, and Jonkins went to take on the enemy, the mighty fire, and now all are merely pools, burning themselves, spreading the mighty fire. As I write this to you, Mother, sadness engulfs me. I feel myself beginning to soften as I write these words. Which is a gross thing to write in a letter to your mother. Until you imagine what the opposite thing he could write would be. Which is considerably worse. Yeah, it turns out that a whole bag of 99p soldiers lasts about 14 seconds when the thermite reaction goes off around them. I'm going to tell you one more experiment we did. Now, we were, I don't know, those of you who are real scientists or engineers or any of that, were any of you the kids who were really good at science at school and knew it?
No.
By cheering? Got some no's. Any yeses? Yeah, absolutely. From the back, there's a few. So I love doing this set with 12-year-old kids because they all write everything down. I'm like, I am going to fucking do that. I hate my teachers. I was so annoyingly good at science at school. I peaked really early. I did take part in the National Chemistry Olympiad. Can I get a woo? It was me getting a question wrong that got us knocked out in the semi-finals to Manchester Grammar School. Yeah, the standard was so high and the questions were so poor, there was one question got wrong in either semi-final. Like this 45-minute long competition, the final had to go to a tiebreaker because no one got anything wrong. I forgot the word alkaline. Yep. The worst thing is, recently I was doing a training session at the Royal Society of Chemistry in the very room where this happened. So there's a bunch of PhD students who are like, oh, Steve, how can we make our science presentations better? I'm just sobbing. Anyway, right, we were annoyingly good at science. And so one time in physics, what we did with every experiment was sit down with the way you're supposed to do it, cross out all the bits that we thought were pointless crap. Like, you do not need to wash a burette once with T-pole, once with tap water, and then twice with deionized water, if it already looks kind of clean. Just rush it through with deionized water, done. You don't need to do a titration 3 times to get it accurately. Just get good at them and you'll do it right first time. Right, so we were doing an experiment in physics. It's one of these boring physics experiments where you move a thing of mass and a mass does a thing. I didn't take in a lot of the details, all right? Because I was too busy crossing out bits of the protocol. And what we did was what we always did. We drew a graph, we took the first measurement we were supposed to take, we took the last measurement we were supposed to take, we drew a straight line between them, and then we made up the other measurements. with slight deviations away from the line to just prove we're not perfect. Like, we didn't nail any of it directly. And the trouble was, teachers, they meet us every year. Not us, but there's someone like us every year. And they're like, oh, you think you've been invented something new? The first kid to try that on me was in 1968. Because guess what? GCSE physics hasn't changed in all that time. So we plotted this and we plotted that and we drew the line. And the teacher came over and he said, You've not done this properly, have you? You've not done the practical, you've not done the experiments. And we said, no, we haven't. Busted. And he said, listen, lads, I know both of you want to go on to careers in science. Steve, in your case, a really poor career in science, where you become a comedian. I know you want to go into careers in science, so I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to take this away and know this for the rest of your scientific career. There is no place in the world for a theoretical physicist. To put this in perspective, Duncan is now a professor of theoretical physics at Syracuse University. My favourite thing about that story is the first time I told that story on stage, I recorded it and I sent it to Duncan, who lives on the other side of the world, and I went, I'm talking about you in front of drunk strangers. His first reply was, will any of them fuck me? Because he's a physicist. He's a physicist. And then he listened to the recording and he said, what you've missed out from that, Steve, is how the teacher knew that we'd cheated and how he knew we'd used theory to make it up. And I said, why, what was it? He said, well, it was meant to be a hyperbolic curve.